I spent like 20 minutes just thinking of glue puns.
And I'm going to talk about me, myself, and my problems here for a little while.
The Rule 34 questions were last week.
That's not a puzzle, it's pushing blocks.
If a wave of dragons are coming to raise my town and burn my crops, that's pretty awful to me directly.
But I want to hear about your other shitty characters.
Of course, invest in a robotic Flava Flav.
This is the Debate This podcast.
Welcome to Debate This, the show where no one is right, but someone is definitely wrong. In this podcast, we take time out of our busy adult lives to argue over the important things, like comics, video games, and why Fallout 76 has taken over my life. Please at me and check in on my well-being. Before we get into things today, we here at Debate This wanted to take a second to recognize that as of this recording today, the father of Marvel Comics, Stan Lee, passed away. So we are all incredibly thankful for the light and the joy that he's brought into this world, and truly and sincerely appreciate all that he's been able to accomplish. My name is Todd Thomas, and joining me today are Andrew Free Drop Billy Henderson, Kyle Good Magic Harper, and Matt My Boy Jack Cole. Today, we're going to jump into the land of make-believe. Since we're months away from Captain Marvel, Avengers 4, and Spider-Man Far From Home, I've challenged these nerds to dig down deep into the Spider-Man universe and pick out a villain who deserves a gritty reboot. In Spider-Man Homecoming, we had Michael Keaton give Adrian Toomes, better known as the Vulture, a much-needed facelift. And in Far From Home, it looks like Jake Gyllenhaal will get a chance to make Quentin Beck, Mysterio, not look like a magician with a fishbowl helmet. Today, I'm looking to pull another villain out of the 90s cartoons and into the next movie. So boys, give me the deets over the villainous horse you've hitched your debate cart to.
Wait, is Jake Gyllenhaal not gonna wear a fishbowl helmet? Because I'm.
Oh no, if he doesn't wear the helmet, we'll all leave. But I'm just saying, it's gonna look better.
It better be.
I hope
cool
it's one of those
fishbowl.
like meta references that Marvel, the MCU's gotten so good at doing, which is like they'll nod it like off camera, like he'll have a fish.
They'll pan over it in the background or something. All right. Well, that was some.
We're just gonna wait for Andrew now.
Is it me?
I think
It's you.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Tell me who you've chosen and go.
Okay. So,
are you ready now?
Yeah, I'm ready. All right. So I dug deep for this one. I looked at Spider-Man's roster of villains and I tried to look for the silliest names, and there are some silly ones, guys.
Yes, there are.
It was a real cross between Stiltman and the villain that I went with, which is called Paste Pot Pete, aka the Trapster, aka Peter Petruski.
It's a good thing you went with Paste Pot Pete, because the internet seems to think they're gonna put Stiltman in one of these seasons of Daredevil soon. So
they teased some tall legs in the background of an episode.
He actually looks kind of cool. He's just like a really tall robot.
yeah.
Which, like, okay, that's fine. That's not the weirdest thing that Marvel's ever done. But let's talk about the weirdest thing Marvel's ever done. It's Paste Pot Pete.
Don't give me too much, because I wanna get a good taste in question one, but just that brief good overview.
Paste Pot Pete, the OG version, is a very silly looking Polish American immigrant living the life of a highfalutin scientist, and a not like a Dr. Otto Octavius scientist, but more of like a kind of scientist, like a Jurassic Park scientist. Like,
Yeah, see?
he's only building weapons for building weapons' sake.
He only builds doomsday devices.
Yeah, exactly. but doomsday devices that are related to adhesive and and other like schoolyard materials.
I want every interaction with him to start with, "You've gotten yourself into a sticky situation."
I spent like 20 minutes just thinking of glue puns.
Okay, well, before we can hear any of those, Kyle, can you tell us who you brought to the villainous potluck?
So I took it all the way back to Spider-Man's first villain, the Chameleon, who showed up in the very first issue of Spider-Man, Dmitry Smerdyakov, and if I'm mispronouncing that, please keep it to yourself. But the Chameleon, he's a famously master of disguise and general trickery.
I dig it. All right, Matt, what do you got?
Well, if it's the color of the Green Goblin, and it looks like the Green Goblin, and it has ears like the Green Goblin, and smiles like the Green Goblin, and Spider-Man is his villain like the Green Goblin, it is most certainly Miles Warren, the creepy science teacher who's way too into his students and goes by the name the Jackal. Because I didn't realize that every villain in Spider-Man looked a lot like not the Green Lantern, the Green Goblin, until I researched the Jackal. And here he is, the guy who looks exactly like the Green Goblin, but furry, and isn't, and wears a loincloth, and is a science teacher who's way too into his students.
So Matt put up a picture of this, and I love this picture. He's like a cool yoga Green Goblin.
Well, he reminds me of
He's
the Green
holding up
Goblin
a bust
in
of Spider-Man's head, which where do you buy a bust of Spider-Man's head?
Well, he just looks like the Green Goblin in Miles Morales' universe, but way less buff.
Yeah, or
take
the old 90s Gargoyle cartoon and mash Yoda in there somewhere.
Yeah.
He's like a green Dulcine from Street Fighter.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this. Let's stir this up a bit. So my first question for you all today, throwing it back to the Vulture and Homecoming, they were able to take Adrian Toomes and from his comic book roots of being a nerdy electrical engineer wronged by his business partner, and they turned him into a guy salvaging Chitauri tech from New York who turns it into weaponry after Tony Stark and the government try to confiscate from it, all in the name of providing for his family.
Can we just say Michael Keaton is the greatest actor of our generation? Like, we all agree with that, right? There's no debate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is, I mean, we were talking about it before the recording that Michael Keaton made that movie what it was. And if your butt didn't pucker a little bit in that car scene, you're a liar.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you need to check your pulse.
Well, so talking about ways that they improved the villain for the movie screen. So tell me about your villain's backstory now and how it's going to tie to the greater Marvel Cinematic Universe. How you're going to church it up for the big screen, and most importantly, why it deserves to have an endless budget thrown at it.
So I'll be honest, there's not a whole lot about old Paste Pot Pete.
No shit.
Believe it
You're
or not.
kidding.
Yeah. He's kind of a one-trick pony. And after the silly 60s, he was one of those that just didn't make it to the next cut. So outside of like he hates the Human Torch, there's not a whole lot of backstory to this guy. So I took this in a very different direction, and I had a lot of fun doing this. I won't bore you. I have like a 4-page screenplay, no lie.
Oh, he does.
Of course you do.
We can see it in the show notes, everyone.
I won't bore you with that now. I'll give you the highlights, but maybe as a bonus episode we can do my screenplay.
We'll put it on social media, maybe.
Perfect. So I kind of took this in a similar direction to Michael Keaton's character. I like the like blue collar approach, the fact that he's just like a dad in New York, very relatable. So I'll read you my treatment. Here we go. Henry Petruski is a second-generation Polish immigrant working as a mid-level factory engineer in Gary, Indiana. Now, Gary, Indiana is the one factoid that we know about the real Peter Petruski. He is from Gary, Indiana. He hates the Human Torch and he likes glue. Those are the 3 things that we know about him.
Also, factoid, Gary, Indiana is the worst place. Like, just the worst place. So if a glue eater villain
from Gary, Indiana, we're not changing
all our
our
friends
minds.
from Indiana, we love you. It is considered to be the most Midwest of the Midwest. So I also took this in a little different direction. So instead of Peter Petruski, his name is Henry Petruski, and I'll explain why. Henry has 3 kids with his wife Donna, with whom he's been married for 19 long years. Donna and Henry live modestly, with the both of them struggling to balance work and family responsibilities. Henry also supports his ailing father, who is suffering from onset Alzheimer's. Henry works at Stark Chemical, a subsidiary of Stark Industries, which is overseen by his brother Peter Petruski. So in the original lore, Peter Petruski is the brilliant scientist who invents the polymer. So we're focused on his brother Henry. where Henry is a warm father figure to his team of misfit factory workers. His brother Peter is a cold and ambitious executive, willing to trade any man's life in a second to save a buck. Obviously, Henry resents his brother, both for his successes and for his refusal to participate in their father's care. Basically, Henry is losing all his life savings taking care of their father, while Peter is living the life of luxury in his high castle. One day, Henry arrives to work to find that Peter has set in motion a new automated workflow that will virtually wipe out their entire floor staff. He showcases this new adhesive polymer, one that will obviously one that is incredibly effective and cost efficient because science and reasons. Henry confronts his brother about the layoffs. They announce that they're going to be basically wiping out the entire factory staff, and many of which whom Henry directly employs. And his brother responds rather flippantly. He says, "Well, they will be compensated appropriately." Peter is more focused on the new automated workflow, which is introduced by A1 Ms. Pepper Potts, directly from Stark Industries. There's the connection. He shows the robotic arm, kind of like imagine the beginning of Spider-Man 2 when Dr. Octopus is not evil yet. And there's this little robotic arm that's got a drill gun, and the drill gun shoots off this little splotch of this adhesive polymer. Peter basically he showcases the polymer by sticking a little piece of balsa wood to a bowling ball, and then he holds the balsa wood and watches as the bowling ball is held completely in place by this polymer. So that's kind of setting up the technology here. Henry starts to get angrier as they bicker back and forth, and Henry's anger eventually gets the better of him, and the brothers fight. Peter grabs the glue drill and shoots it at Henry, sticking his shoulder to the wall. So, think of there's going to be it's going to kind of invoke Spider-Man a lot with this glue gun, which I think is kind of a cool parallel. So he shoots Henry. Henry's shoulder gets stuck to the wall and he can't get it off. And that demonstrates to the audience oh shit, this stuff is serious. So Henry rips off his shirt and goes to chase his brother. Because they're in a factory, there's a lot of really dangerous machinery. So of course they begin fighting on the floor of the factory. Henry finds Peter and he tackles him in the middle of the factory, and they're back at it again. Peter, his malicious brother, tries to shoot Henry again. Henry is able to dodge and grabs the drill gun, wrestles it from Peter's grasp, and the drill goes off and shoots Peter in the hand. And because this is a movie, there is a conveyor belt directly behind Peter. Some of you have read ahead. And Henry accidentally shoots Peter in the hand. The impact knocks Peter's hand back on the conveyor belt as Peter is slowly pulled toward the paper baler behind him. So immediately cut to Henry frantically trying to pull Peter, break him free, but the polymer is too damn strong. And as he's trying to turn off the machine, he's trying to force it shut. It won't stop, and we see the camera pan out as Peter's screams are then muffled by the sounds of the baler grinding his bones.
Is Pepper Potts there this whole time?
Yeah, let's say she left. I think that probably interferes with
she oversees HR, not risk management.
Okay.
Yeah, this is after hours. So we fast forward a year later, and Henry is now living in upstate New York. He has a beard now to show that time has passed, and he's going by the name Pete. So he's, in his own weird way, kind of living as, I guess, acknowledging his brother. He's living in squalor. We see cockroaches all over littering the floor. There's broken beer bottles and liquor bottles everywhere. He's committing petty crimes basically to stay alive, just to stay afloat. But he's barely a man anymore. He's just living with this guilt, this immense guilt. He's basically run away from his entire life. And the last kind of big scene here is we see him rob a jewelry store using the glue gun, kind of using the glue gun to break through glass, to interfere with security cameras and alarms. And he starts shoveling just tons and tons of jewels into his jacket pockets, and the police eventually catch up to him. And again, in a very Spider-Man-like scene, we see him shoot cops and basically sticking cops to their cars. So what I thought was kind of a cool angle here is you could play up like the beginning of, wait for it, Sonic Adventure 2. Everybody thinks because Pete quotes air quotes is wearing a red and blue tracksuit. There's like fuzzy camera footage that gets posted online that people think he's Spider-Man, and so we cut to Peter Parker now looking through Reddit threads and basically looking himself up and seeing a headline that says Spidey Breaking Bad, and it's a grainy video of Petruski stealing these jewels. I'm
gonna make one correction and say that it's that we find out people think he's gone bad through J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh yeah,
yelling about that menace Spider-Man.
Well, no. What we're getting, because this is now in like present year, we've got J. Jonah Jameson with a picture that's very clearly not Spider-Man, but he's pixelating it.
Yes.
And he's going, good enough, Spider-Man. And like he's still J. Jonah Jameson is shit posting.
Real
all
talk
of this.
though, do you think J. Jonah Jameson would be doing like a clickbaity like BuzzFeed? Like, couldn't you see him doing like one of those, leading one of those sites?
Yeah. Top 10 photos of Spider-Man committing crimes. Number 5 will shock you.
There's a listicle about it.
InfoWars with J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, and he definitely has a podcast. He absolutely has a podcast.
Isn't that the thing in the Spider-Man game that I haven't played?
It is. You can listen to recordings of J. Jonah. It's so good.
J.K. Simmons' J. Jonah Jameson is one of my favorite
the best
comic book casting decisions of all time.
Oh yeah,
that's the casting that I want them to bring back into like the MCU.
Yes.
Like I just wish they would just say like, screw it, we know it's fine.
It was so good, and it'll never be able to get replicated again. Yeah. So
all right,
that's
Kyle.
That's Paste Pot Pete.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for our podcast. So I took a similar approach to the Chameleon and had him had his backstory tied to tragedy at the hands of Tony Stark. And similar to how he's Spider-Man's first villain, his backstory is going to go back all the way to the first MCU movie. So he gets screwed over by the events of Iron Man. So Dimitri was employed by Stark Industries. He was working on some, high-tech adaptive camouflage technology, some kind of like electronic pigmented cloth that you could effectively just change the appearance of it, change the camo you're in, with only, a couple button presses or programming or whatever. He's very excited about this project. I want to have him as a war veteran, Afghanistan, Iraq. He's in one of those conflicts, and he lost his squad mate in an ambush. And he is determined to get this right, because if their camouflage was better, maybe they wouldn't have been ambushed in that way, and his friend would still be alive today. So he's really close to getting this technology down, and right when he's about to figure it out, Tony Stark announces he's no longer accepting military contracts and shuts down all the research that is dedicated to war and military research. Dimitri is without a job. Desperate, he kind of steals all that information he was working on, takes his prototypes home with him, and keeps working on his own. He realizes very quickly that Stark's money was a very important part of his research, and he needs some more funding to get going. So he takes a tiny piece of cloth he was able to get working and makes a mask out of it, and is able to replicate faces from images he finds online. So we watch him kind of stake out a bank, gather some info, do a little recon, and he, with his mask, impersonates a bank employee. We get to watch him kind of clumsily fake his way into the vault, and he takes as much money as he can throw into a bag and just walks out clean and scot-free. His disguise works, and we kind of see through news footage or something that the employee he impersonated gets blamed for the crime, and since they have him so clearly on camera, He gets arrested, and Dimitri gets off scot-free, no charges.
This feels like the plot of like Dexter or Weeds or like any like anti-hero, like you're rooting for them but you're not supposed to be, kind of thing.
I really like my villains to have a good fleshed out tragic backstory.
I can also really just see this Dimitri guy like on the internet trying to figure out what to do with this technology and stumbling across the deep fakes that took over like Pornhub there for a minute. Being like, I can use this for evil instead of evil.
That's honestly there have been a few security, like military security interviews I've seen where like that is the next big threat, is like we can pretty much almost perfectly replicate and fake someone's voice, and we're getting close to doing it with video. And once we perfect that technology and it gets out there, things are going to be bad. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about comic books. So that's kind of what we see in the past. We jump ahead, like we did in Spider-Man Homecoming, to present day, and we see Dimitri with this massive operation. He's pulling heists, and he's doing more what would be considered identity fraud than robbery. He's perfected like voice changing technology. He's perfected this adaptive camouflage mask, and he is able to perfectly imitate and act like anyone. So he's impersonating bank managers, hedge fund managers, investors, and just taking large sums, but small enough that he goes unnoticed, into his new corporation, Chameleon Defense. He sets up Chameleon He sets up Chameleon Defense as kind of this white hat espionage, counter espionage firm. So he's got this very legitimate face to his company, and he kind of uses his shady tactics to keep them in the black year after year. One day, going through his normal actions, just kind of logging into banks and cleaning out people's accounts and taking them into his own, he happens to do this to May Parker. So furious that Aunt May gets screwed over this way, Peter Parker puts on the suit, goes checking out what happened, and traces it back to Chameleon Defense. Spider-Man breaks in, Dimitri figures out Spider-Man's identity, and uses his technology to pretend to be Aunt May and pretend to be in trouble, leading Peter Parker into a death trap, and pretending to be Mary Jane and getting Peter in trouble and leading him into death trap. And it just goes on like that until their final confrontation. I
love the connection of the first movie where Tony Stark shuts down his defense. Like that was a real good callback. I like that.
Thank you.
So Kyle, walk us through how, because this definitely does. Walk us through how this connects to Mission Impossible 2.
We'll see Tom Cruise just stroll through the background when we get that nice opening shot of present day Chameleon Defense, like what it looks like now. That'll be our nice Easter egg of getting Tom Cruise to walk through the shot.
Yeah. Nice. Tom Cruise is on the other side of the building. You just don't see it in that picture.
Exactly.
Good. All right, Matt, what do you got?
All right, so unlike most villains in the MCU, Miles Warren doesn't really come from Stark Industries at all. Actually, he doesn't really come from most of the past MCU at all. You'd probably only recognize him if you had a very, very, very keen eye during Spider-Man Homecoming. Because Miles Warren is actually just Peter Parker's science teacher. At least that is his current job. See, he was a famed scientist who had spent years working with another mysterious colleague on a genetics experiment far off in the mountains. It was the typical Miles Warren was a big scientist, Miles Warren something. was defamed and embarrassed and went off to follow some classified ad into the mountains where he could continue to science. And so he came into this genetics experiment with another mysterious doctor where they were working on a cloning project. And they were working on splicing human DNA with animal DNA to create genetically modified people, because that's just what you do in comic book movies.
If you're a scientist in the Marvel universe, you're just trying to replicate the super soldier serum.
Yeah,
That's all it is
That's all
every
you do.
time.
So here it is. Here's the kicker. Because I liked this very much from what Andrew coined as the silly 60s, which I also like very much. The guys working on this cloning project, they do not call them humans. They do not call them superhumans. They call them Newmans.
Ugh.
Yeah, and it is so terrible, and I love it, and that's staying. You're
Good.
sure as shit that's gonna stick around.
Oh shit, that's really
We're not
good.
gonna deep six that word like we did with mutants.
That sounds like how they. I was gonna say how they get around calling them mutants before Disney bought Fox.
Yeah.
But
Or how The Walking Dead does never say zombies.
yes.
No zombie movie ever says zombies. There's not a single zombie movie or zombie entertainment that knows that zombies exist.
All right, nerd,
It's a
calm
different
yourself.
fan-
That's
different
that's
I
theory.
a,
believe
another
Shaun
day.
of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead
but-
does call them zombies, as
Yeah.
does Warm Bodies. Warm Bodies also calls them zombies. But
Okay, Warm Bodies counts.
I
mean,
so
Shaun of
regret
the Dead
saying
does it.
any of this.
Shaun of the Dead does it because it's a parody of zombie movies, but
anyway,
Warm
I
Bodies
want
I'll
to be a
accept.
zombie and
So-
die.
so Miles Warren is working with this other guy to create Newmans. Unfortunately for Miles Warren,
Thank you for
it's
that
so
pause
funny.
afterwards.
unfortunately for Miles Warren, one of the Newmans escapes. And the one that escapes is the Jackal hybrid. And it just escapes. It is never important. It never comes back. There's no repercussions, nothing. It just escapes and is gone. Doesn't matter anymore. But
That sounds
what
pretty good.
does matter is that everybody's pissed because Miles Warren let the guy get away, and so he gets fired. Which, realistically, is pretty good for Miles, because now we're going to tie all this shit back into the MCU. He left only 6 months before Hydra fell, and the project lost all funding. So this project was being funded by not only Justin Hammer from Hammer Industries, but Alexander Pierce, who you might recognize as the S.H.I.E.L.D. head who was commanding Hydra's agents within S.H.I.E.L.D. before Hydra fell. So, Miles Warren, without really knowing it, was working for Hydra creating Newmans. Now, fast forward to present day, Miles Warren has given up on the big science and has retreated to your average, everyday, run-of-the-mill science in high school, where he is teaching...
Pulled a Walter White.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Teaching high school biology to people like Peter Parker. Also to people like Gwen Stacy. Now, I know Gwen Stacy's not in the MCU yet. She might be in the next movie. That's the big rumor. Play with me in this headspace where Gwen Stacy exists in the MCU, and fingers crossed it's Emma Stone again, because that would be great, even though it would be way out of the age range, and I can dream. So, anyway, Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker have classed with Mr. Warren. What's weird is that Mr. Warren is obsessed with Gwen Stacy. Like, the really creepy kind of obsessed. Definitely has a huge crush on her. Definitely has become really obsessive over always making sure she's in the front of the class. Always making sure he is giving her extra help. You know, being the typical creepy science teacher who ends up on the news after a couple of years working at that school. Something, Gwen Stacy dies. Pick your favorite Gwen Stacy death from one of the 15 times she's died in one canon or another. And Mr. Warren is really pissed. Like most people, Mr. Warren blames Spider-Man for Gwen Stacy's death. He goes insane because the 18-year-old that was getting him out of bed every day is no longer a thing, and he decides, what should I do
Gross.
but make my own
Yeah.
18-year-old to get me out of bed every day?
Nope.
This really went down a
This just
Oh,
turned into a
pass.
sex
Yeah,
robot.
this
is
is
weird.
This is
I don't
gross.
like it.
This is gross and comic book canon. Like Amazing Spider-Man, run of the mill canon. So, he creates a clone of Gwen Stacy, also creates a clone of Peter Parker, realizes through cloning Peter Parker's DNA that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, creates the Clone Saga, which is what most people know the Jackal for. You know that meme of the two Spider-Men pointing at each other?
Pointing at each
Yeah,
other.
This guy's fault. So, creates a clone Peter Parker, realizes Peter Parker is Spider-Man, swears his vengeance on Peter Parker, needs something to reap his vengeance, and decides to take inspiration from the Newman that he let get loose and turn himself into a Jackal hybrid, bonding himself with your typical titanium claws, because I think that this was written before adamantium was a big deal, and is given himself superhuman strength and agility and healing and smarts and all of the typical shit that villains give to themselves when they genetically modify themselves. Thus, you have the Jackal. Where the green fur came from, don't know. That's going away.
Listen.
I want to watch you pitch the. I want to make the villain the guy who makes weird sex clones of his teenage students to a studio and see what happens.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm still back about 3 minutes ago when you said he gets his own 18-year-old who gets him out of bed every day.
Yeah.
I'm going through some shit.
It's gross, right?
Right now on that one.
Yeah, it's fucking gross. You know what else it is?
No,
you know what else it is? Relevant in 2018.
So here's the thing too. So you saying it's canon. As part of my own research for this, I was looking for the weirdest things that have happened in a Spider-Man comic. Peter's semen gave Mary Jane cancer.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
that was a thing.
I mean, weirder things have happened than like sex robots, but let's move on.
Like this, I do need to say that, like, as far as what I read, and I'm sure there's more, but as far as what I read, there's never actually like gross sex that happens. It's like, it's a weird obsession, but it never goes the whole distance. It's all just implied.
Marvel comics usually stay pretty PG-13 in that regard.
Well, I mean, and especially depending on when this happened, like there was a lot of regulation over some of that stuff. All right, so forgetting about all of that, and going on to question 2. So, if we are taking your villain to the big screen, we need to be able to really visualize what that's going to look like. We're going to give him some of that old Hollywood razzle-dazzle. So I need you to tell me a couple things now. So 1, who are you going to cast as your villain? And what is their costume going to look like? Specifically, think like Michael Keaton wasn't made up as an old bald man with an offensively long nose and a fur boa. Instead, he was like a badass with a bombardier jacket that also had a fur collar, but like a classy fur collar. So fellas, bring your villain into the year 2020 for me, because that's when I imagine this movie comes out.
So my interpretation of Henry, I think you would need to have a blue collar kind of man's man, a good dad, a good blue collar dad. And to me, there's no better good blue collar dad than Milo Ventimiglia from This Is Us.
Good.
Do you mean Jess from
I also mean
Gilmore Girls?
Jess from Team Gilmore Girls, #Team Jess, #Jess should have gotten his own spin-off show, #my favorite character. Yes.
I hate what you just did there.
This guy's Peter Petrelli from Heroes.
Yeah, he's also Peter Petrelli.
Yes. He's got a lot of good personas. But really, I'm thinking more of his most recent character, and This Is Us, where he's that working man's hero.
Does he still have the mustache?
He definitely has the mustache, without a doubt, but he does have to grow the beard to show that time has passed. That is absolutely a requirement. Now, I picture his character very much like his character in This Is Us, where he's wearing a lot of corduroy jackets and Wrangler jeans. That's probably most of his wardrobe, different shades of corduroy
product
jacket.
placement.
Yeah.
Just completely like shitting on his comic book wardrobe right now. It's not going to be bright purple and green.
It's probably not going to be bright purple and green. I like the idea of him after he breaks bad, quote unquote, to kind of like wear something red and blue just for that, just to set up that grainy, like, oh, it's Spider-Man, even though we all know it's clearly fucking not. Like the Shadow the Hedgehog, I found you, faker, like that kind of thing. We'll do a Sonic Adventure 2 episode someday. Yeah, so that's where I'm going with him. I think his brother Peter, he's got to play like a snide, business executive. He wears a lot of suits. So who better than the main character from Suits? Which I don't know if any of you have seen. It's not a good show. Like, it's not.
Oh, hold on now.
I'm in a good show in the fact that it's like an engaging story. It's
very much a USA.
Oh yeah,
it's
it's USA.
It's a show that's
okay.
on.
I see it.
It's a show that's on. I'll watch it. But the main guy, his name is Gabriel. I think Gabriel Macht. The main smarmy guy.
He does look smarmy.
He's super smarmy. Like, that's his whole character, is like smarmy guy in a suit. So
smarmy feels like one of those words to me that you can't define. You can only give examples of.
Yes. You really missed your opportunity to get the band back together and cast his brother from Heroes.
Well, I was actually, that was the first thing, and then I was like, ooh, what if I just made it Logan? No, it's gotta be the guy from Suits. Because his brother from Heroes, I always think that's that other guy who's in that comedy troupe that I see him in, like, he's always in like bit parts in comedy shows, but he has a much higher voice. I don't know who that is, but who I'm talking about.
I'm so lost.
Yeah, Kyle.
No, Lost is my
here.
character is from Lost. We're not there yet.
Kyle and I are best friends, and he gets me.
Well, so Kyle, tell us what star you have cast, because I'm sure it's no one that we've ever discussed ever in great detail.
So, funny you should mention that. It's not The Rock, but it's the other one.
If it's not The Rock or John Cena, then who's left?
So I think Rami Malek would be a great
That's good.
chameleon.
Our new The Rock.
He's got experience as a tech guru from Mr. Robot. He's shooting up in stardom from playing Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody. And he's got those nice Steve Buscemi eyes that I really wanted to get for whoever I cast as Chameleon, because that just makes me happy. But I want when he's not disguised as someone else, I want Rami Malek to be in a nice, super nice suit, because he's running this big company, kind of the evil version of Stark Industries. And I really want my movie to set up Chameleon or Dimitri as the MCU's answer to not being able to get the Kingpin in there. And I want him to be this kind of overarching white-collar crime lord.
I didn't realize, so I was obviously Googling pictures of the Chameleon, because that's what I do in this moment. And I didn't realize, I guess I didn't remember, that in the 90s cartoon, he was always wearing like this combat uniform with this weird shoulder sling, and like it was almost a Vegeta Dragon Ball Z costume.
Yeah, the Chameleons had some tragic costumes over the years, and I want to get rid of that and just put him in a nice, like, crisp white suit and have him just look baller as hell.
I dig that.
Well,
all right, man.
Yeah, so I'm about to say some really mean things about this actor. And I want to put it out there that all the research I've done says that none of this is true, and that this actor is a really nice guy in real life. But like Michael Emerson from Lost.
Well, let's hope Michael Emerson from Lost doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, but like, did you guys watch Lost? Am I the only one here who watched Lost?
No, I watched the whole thing.
I'm the only one who hasn't watched Lost.
Okay. I haven't watched it either.
So,
okay.
Ben from Lost has to be one of the creepiest dudes ever on TV.
Super creepy.
So creepy. And I mean, Michael Emerson is just kind of a creepy looking dude to begin with.
He's character actor as fuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. So again, I'm about to say some really mean things about Michael Emerson, but I'm not gonna lie, he kind of screams rapey science teacher when you just look at him real quick. That like weird half-ass smile that he has, and the round glasses, and the frayed but balding hair. He's a creepy looking dude. Again, my apologies to Michael Emerson. If you're listening, I'm sure you're a great guy. And
fantastic actor.
Yeah, phenomenal actor.
He played a villain in Arrow too. For those who else might not have watched Lost. If you like Arrow, he played Keaton James. I'm sorry.
Who's the guy in the first Captain America movie who he's shorter and he's like always a villain. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
I don't know the actor.
He's not the Red Skull, but the guy that was like his little sidekick for a while.
Who was in the computer in the second one?
Yeah. I don't know his name.
I don't know his name
I was just
either.
gonna say Michael Emerson reminds me of that guy where he's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
he just has the face of a bad guy, even though I'm sure he's a super nice guy.
And him and his agent really leaned into that.
And
when
they
going
really
out to
lean into it,
interviews.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's the
Oh,
Tobolowsky of villains.
Arnim Zola.
Yeah,
I don't know
Arnim
who the
Zola,
actor is.
Michael Emerson was also in Saw. Like, which if you want to talk about creepy dudes, his part in Saw in the bathroom scene is horrifying and very unsettling. So yeah, he's a creepy guy. And if you're talking like weirdly obsessive science teacher who is smart, but like you just know there's more there, and he has a dark, troubled history, I'm gonna go with Michael Emerson. I'm not gonna lie, just having a real hard time bringing the Jackal costume into 2020 because the green fursuit is not a good look. I don't even know where green came from. Jackals aren't green. Jackals are brown. There's never been a green jackal.
The green came from old comic books only being able to use like 7 colors. So all villains were green or purple.
Yeah. So like, I have like sort of 2 thoughts here. One thought is that like he becomes sort of like Beast from the X-Men like, which I don't really love. My other thought is like weird geneticist scrubs. The like sort of eerie, not hospital scrubs, but the like morgue-esque kind of gross, probably a little bloody scrubs. And then probably some sort of like cool mask, because there is the whole clone saga, which happened in comic books in the 90s, and Jackal created all of that. And there is another Jackal who is also a clone, and that clone also becomes Jackal, and that Jackal wears like a suit and a mask. So I'm just gonna mush all that shit together, and we're gonna say like green scrubs, guy with a little bit too much body hair, cool mask, Jackal 2020.
Nice.
I can get behind that weird body hair, if you know what I mean.
I don't.
So
I don't know what you mean.
We'll stop the. We'll
And
stop
I don't
the
know if I want
podcast
you to
and
elaborate.
Why does Todd always get the cold opens? Damn it.
So here with question 3 I've got for you guys. So you've now detailed your character story. You've told me who's playing them, what they look like. And so in casting your villain as the big bad in the 3rd installment of the current Spider-Man trilogy, you are now going to be the head of the Sinister Six. That's the only playoff that can possibly happen in the 3rd movie. So far, your team includes the Vulture, Mysterio, and Scorpion. And then the other 2 villains here that aren't yours. Tell me now why your villain is the best equipped to lead the team, and also why the others are hot garbage.
I want to go on record real quick saying if the 3rd MCU Spider-Man movie isn't titled Spider-Man Coming Home, then I quit.
Yeah, I'm with you.
There it is.
Go on.
It'll be something home. I don't know. Someone tried to say that it was going to be home is where the heart is, but that's too long.
I hate that. I hate that so much.
I'm cheering for Homeward Bound.
Nope.
I would like.
That's also
I would
bad.
like to throw Home Alone into the hat.
Ooh.
It's Coming Home. All of your ideas are bad, and mine is good.
What
Go on, Andrew.
What if whatever the title to Spider-Man is just embroidered on a nice pillow?
They're good.
Good.
Okay. I was answering a question. Yes.
Yeah. So why is your guy the leader of the Sinister Six, and why are the other 2's butt?
So what I like about my iteration of Paste Pot Pete is that he has nothing to lose.
Because it's better than anything.
Paste Pot Pete. His name is Paste Pot Pete. And I have in my screenplay treatment, there is a little nod to Paste Pot Pete. But again, that's going to be some bonus content. So I think I built this kind of design based on Keaton's Vulture, but the one main difference is that where Keaton still is retaining some of his like quote unquote normal life, Paste Pot Pete, I can't even say it legitimately. Henry has completely disavowed that entire part of his life. So he is a man with nothing to lose. Excuse me. he has run away. He has escaped. He's driven millions of miles, thousands, from his previous home. He has no ties with his family anymore. You know, he's basically on the lam. Think like Walter White in the last 2 episodes of Breaking Bad. Like he's got nothing. Later iterations of this character, they renamed him the Trapster, which, like, again, he's still super fucking lame. But there's a picture of him. He looks like a D&D bard. Like he looks like a shitty dandelion. He looks like my D&D character actually. And he's got like this like dopey like goatee and
this link hat and this
he's got a little
like
bit of an elephant link hat.
Snidely
Whiplash.
Whiplash goatee.
But I like this
terrible.
iteration. I like this thought of him living in like this remote cabin in the woods. Again, like the last episode of Breaking Bad. And he's got like his whole thing is like setting up traps. So he's got like bear traps set up and like landmines set up and like all this stuff, like just waiting to get people to like stop them from finding him. Like I like that. I like that kind of iteration where he's just like on his own. And I think he could use that to a lot of advantages in breaking and entering in you know, fortified buildings and kind of stuff like that. But really, what's gonna give him the edge is the fact that he doesn't give a fuck. Like his name is Paste Pot Pete. He didn't give a fuck.
Jesus, I hate what you've shared in the doc. There's not one part of this that I like
so much about the things you choose to be.
And what's so bad about this
what's so bad
is
about
that he
it?
has an actual glue gun. Like it's like, let's just steer into the skid and give him a fucking glue gun.
It looks like a caulking gun.
Yeah,
like it does not look threatening.
Yeah, he's redoing his bathroom. That's really all his Pot Pete is.
He's like, I really got to be precise with this spackle treatment.
Yeah.
Kyle, do better.
Oh, I'm glad this is your third question because Dimitri I've painted is perfect to head up the Sinister Six. He's already the head of a nice big corporation. He manages government contracts and shady backwater deals already. So he's got a nice front for bringing on 5 other crazy super powered people into his fold. He can, you know, he's just contracting these guys out for security work. And as I said before, I want Dimitri to kind of be the anti-Stark of the MCU. He's this big evil businessman who's insanely competent and got his hands in a whole lot of pots. And
a lot of paste pots.
A lot of paste.
In my head, I said it, and then I hated it.
I walked right into
the
that.
silly
one, didn't
60s
I?
attacks again.
But he's already a leader. He's already got the connections to head up an evil corporation. So I think he's gonna be the one who gets the job of calling the shots in the Sinister Six.
I really, really like everything you just said because it's not what Andrew said.
Because it's nothing to do with Paste Pot Pete.
Yeah, but what happens if push comes to shove and Dimitri is set up at a situation where it's either him or the other guy? Is he really going to sacrifice himself and sacrifice all that he's built?
No, because they're villains. That's not the point of the Sinister Six.
Wait, are you saying?
read
Hold on. No, are you saying Paste Pot Pete is a good leader because he would sacrifice himself? That sounds a lot like what you just said.
I feel like Paste Pot Pete would be like, look, guys, of all of us, I'm probably the least needed. So if someone needs to dive on this literal or figurative hand grenade,
I'm gonna go get coffee at that Caribou Coffee I saw down the street. I'll be back.
Can we mute Henderson so Matt can answer this question?
So
I just hate. Sorry, okay. Matt. I hate so much that tuft of facial hair on his chin, and it haunts my dreams, and I hate it.
Todd's gonna see that face in his dreams tonight.
Matt, make things better.
Okay, wait, no. Someday we'll start a Patreon, and it's only gonna have one tier. And that tier is going to be, give us 50 cents a month, and we will give you access to the Google Docs that we make so you can see all the pictures that we have to go along with this, because I agree, this Paste Pot Pete is going to haunt my nightmares, and I found it.
And you know what? I don't know what the opposite of Patreon is. Maybe it's we're holding our listeners ransom. We'll charge you 50 cents a month if you don't pay us, and we're going to send you this picture a lot.
You either pay us or we attack you with pictures of Paste Pot Pete.
We're going to slide into your DMs with Paste Pot Pete.
This horrible picture, the more that I think he looks like Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray.
I hope. Well, let's see. We need to count off the people that shouldn't be listening to our
answer to
our
the
podcast.
casting question. Andrew?
I think I have to change my answer. He might be played by Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray.
Oh my god.
Okay, Matt, give us things that aren't Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray.
Sure. So, like, Mr. Warren, Miles Warren, the Jackal, if you will, he's that, like, weird kind of smart. That, like, haul up in your room alone while all the other kids are playing in the living room kind of smart. The, like, gross, you don't really want to argue with him because you know he's right, but you don't know how kind of smart. And that's why I think he would end up being the leader of the Sinister Six. The other reason I think that he would end up being the leader of the Sinister Six is because he does have successful cloning tech and a successful streak of superpowered clones. And being weird and crazy, I 100% see him taking tissue samples from the other members of the Sinister Six and stashing them and quietly informing everyone that if they disagree with him, he'll just kill them and make another one. And so if Paste Pot Pete steps out of line, Paste Pot Pete is going to get a Paste Pot cap in his Paste Pot Pete. I lost track of that joke. He's going to get shot in the face, and the Jackal will just make a new one with better paste. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Todd
is
like
will retaliate by shooting you with glue, so your hands will get stuck together, and you can't pick up your gun to shoot him back. So I'll win.
No,
God, I'm so glad I'm the only one who came to this third question with like a real resume for my character. Todd over here is questioning all his life decisions that led him to this point.
What did I do?
I don't want to argue with Kyle because I think that Kyle's right, but I do want to say that Paste Pot Pete is the human embodiment of the sound effect. Like, that's just the noise that he makes.
I also agree that Kyle's right, but I disagree that I'm wrong.
I don't know
Fair.
how both of those things
Touche.
are true, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that, like, he has the weird, manipulative, kind of creepy smart to convince everyone that he's in charge, and I think he is psychotic enough that, like, my guess is that it would be, like, probably the Vulture who steps out of line first, and Michael Keaton would be like, hey, no, I'm in charge. We do what I want. And without hesitation, Miles Warren would just pull out a gun and shoot him in the face, and then there would be a new Vulture in the room by the afternoon. And
So you just pitched the first 15 minutes of Suicide Squad. I hate to tell you.
Whoa, spoiler
hey man,
alert.
nobody saw that movie. Why you gotta bring that into
Yeah,
this?
no one saw that movie. You can't spoil that.
Matt, just a point of clarification here. So the science teacher, you're talking about Martin Starr, right? The science teacher that takes him to the Science Olympiad?
No.
No, he's right. No.
No, this is another science teacher. In Matt's continuity, Martin Starr would have been
Being
fired.
replaced.
Yeah, well, so
Okay.
like, the actual canon is that Miles Warren was a college professor of Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, but since MCU Spider-Man is a high school student, I had to just kind of, like,
Okay.
foghorn leghorn that shit in
And
there somewhere.
So you just made him way grosser and rapier.
You know what, Matt? I'm gonna say that you making the professor a high school teacher is not the least, is not the craziest thing we've talked about today.
Yeah.
So I think we're okay.
Is the craziest thing Paste Pot Pete?
the craziest thing. The craziest thing
This
is
weird little Mark McGrath
If you're
goatee.
in the situation where you have a gun that shoots glue and you happen to be in a factory with a lot of conveyor belts and you happen to be juxtaposed in a situation where you and the person, you are in between the conveyor belt and the person that you're trying to kill is in between you and the conveyor belt, then you, sir, are inclined to win, maybe, possibly. If the other person doesn't have a different weapon. So there.
What?
You picked a big hill to die on, and I'm proud of you for that, but I'm not sure it's going to work.
That'll be my tombstone. Pick the too big a hill to die on.
I don't want to do this anymore. Good. There's a picture of Mark McGrath.
We have a big old picture of Mark McGrath, and it's.
I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, so
tips and all.
I've got one more question, and man, I'm hoping it can help separate winners from losers here today. Because
I don't know if anyone wins today, Todd.
Nobody
The
wins.
silly
all
60s. The silly 60s
Silly
win today.
60s is really who wins. Yes.
Okay, so I've got a bit of good news and a bit of bad news for you guys. Your third installment of the Spider-Man trilogy, it went really, really well, largely in part to specifically your character serving as just this stellar, foil against Spider-Man. The bad news is that the studio wants to tank the franchise and run off with the money in an unnecessary extra lap of a movie, as is par for the course in every Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
So, now I'm asking you to put yourself in the director's chair. The obvious answer of how to achieve this would be to hastily introduce the Green Goblin. So, for Spider-Man 4 Home-tastic Journey, you will be partnered up with the Green Goblin, played by, of course, Adam Sandler. So, tell me what scheme you and the Green Goblin, played by Adam Sandler, put together, and what is specifically done to make this movie outdo the black suit dancing scene and whatever other tragedy you want to identify that ruined the second Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie.
That would be Jamie Foxx playing the itsy bitsy spider on Tesla coils.
That you're right. That was it.
bad.
So
Wait, that happened?
Oh, it happened.
yeah.
God, why?
So specifically to sum this up again, how are you going to ruin Spider-Man 4 with the help of Green Goblin, played by teen heartthrob Adam Sandler? And this doesn't have to necessarily be your character specifically. This is now you as the director, and if you want to include your character, that's fine. Because honestly, some of your characters could very easily ruin a Spider-Man movie.
Pace Pop Pete.
It's
Yeah.
I just want to go on record to say I would buy all the tickets if Marvel cast Adam Sandler in any role in the MCU.
Hell yeah.
Amazing.
I just, I'm like, man, how do you, what's the one common bond of Spider-Man? The last one's always the worst, and they introduced Green Goblin. What third thing could make it really bad? Adam Sandler. There it is.
Well, I think Pace Pot Pete would just ruin a movie by being in it. It would just be like, it's Spider-Man 4, and Pace Pot Pete's like, hey, Pace Pot Pete, and then the movie just ends.
Roll
From
credits.
a metatextual standpoint, I think you're watching Marvel make the decision to try to include Pace Pot Pete in the movie, but that's the movie, and you're seeing the pitch of it. It's kind of like the pilot episode of Seinfeld. But I think if you're gonna, specifically with Adam Sandler, I think you kind of take it to a Jack and Jill kind of situation where Adam Sandler plays both the Green Goblin and Spider-Man.
Oh no!
He's just wearing different wigs.
No one says anything about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Nutty Professor, Eddie Murphy situation where it's just them all sitting at the dinner, and it's like, "Oh, Green Goblin, you gotta stop farting." And they're like, "Oh, I farted," and Green Goblin just farting at Thanksgiving dinner. Actually, you know what? I would totally see that. I would want to pay my money right now, please. Also, bring back Face Pop.
I do these things thinking that they're going to bring joy to our lives, and they don't ever.
They rarely do.
Kyle, how are you going to let Adam Sandler ruin all that we love?
So, the way I'm gonna bring Green Goblin into the fold is he'll have a similar setup to how he came to be in the first Spider-Man movie, where he has to test his Green Goblin formula on himself. And how we're going to let Adam Sandler ruin the movie doing that is just by letting Adam Sandler be himself through that entire scene. Oh no! I injected myself with the Green Goblin serum. Oh, just full throttle, dialed up to 11. Adam Sandler in a laboratory, like pratfalling and knocking things over. David Spade shows up for some reason. He's there.
David Spade is definitely there.
You can do it!
Yeah, Rob Schneider.
Rob Schneider and David Spade are both there, and it's just the worst. And that's really all I've got. I just wanted to do my bad Adam Sandler impression.
Hey, Todd, I have a better question. Instead of your question, can it be, how do you recast the cast of Grown Ups as the Sinister Six?
Oh man, that would be so good, because Kevin James, I want him to be everyone.
Yeah. I'm trying to picture
Kevin James
who
is
would be
Dr.
who.
Octopus.
Yeah.
Kevin James is Dr.
Kevin
Wait,
James is
wait, can
Dr.
it be Grown Ups 2 when Shaq is there, and who does Shaq play?
Everyone.
Mr. Negative.
Yeah, definitely Mr.
What?
Negative.
Okay, one more thing about Kyle's thing. As long as right before he transforms into the Green Goblin, he goes, "Hullabaloo," like he does one of the.
So I think that if you were to insert the Green Goblin hastily into my movie,
Oh, and it's real hastily.
oh, it's very hastily. Yeah, I think that there would probably have to be that like MCU nod to the Jackal's old costume that looks a lot like Green Goblin, and then there would probably be a like, you look like me, I look like you, I do clones, we should utilize this, and the whole movie is just a weird clone affair. Like, lots and lots of clones, and lots of, are you the real Peter Parker? Which one's the real Peter Parker? And the way that I imagine this, the scene that breaks the internet and ruins the movie, is that Jackal and the Green Goblin have decided, obviously the answer to beating Spider-Man is their...
Spider-Man?
Whoa, wait, sorry, I just dropped the gun. The answer to beating Spider-Man is their own army of Spider-Men. So... they just start to...
This is just Mission Impossible 2. Like,
yeah, who
Mission
cares?
Impossible 2.
Whatever.
All movies are Mission Impossible too,
Yeah.
Andrew.
That's accurate.
So
or grown-ups too.
Or grown-ups too.
so they just start mass producing Peter Parkers, and they're like, we'll come back to this Peter Parker army in the morning, and they go home their separate ways. Unfortunately, one Peter Parker falls off the conveyor belt and knocks the lever
the Adam Sandler juice into the vat.
knocks the lever to high speed, and we have suddenly thousands of Peter Parkers everywhere, and these Peter Parkers start to become sentient, and with nowhere else to go, they rely on their cloned DNA and go back to Aunt May's house. And so Aunt May wakes up in the middle of the night with dozens of Peter Parkers in her house, saying, which one of you is what's going on? Who's the real Peter Parker? Tell me.
Dozens of Peters Parker.
Tell me something that only the real Peter Parker would know, and then one Peter Parker would stand up, comb his hair over to one side, don a black suit, and enter into the dance sequence from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Man, that zigged a lot of different ways than I thought it was gonna zag. I thought you were going with like a Being John Malkovich type movie with Adam Sandler instead, and that is a movie I would watch too.
I mean, honestly, like, if you recast any major character as Adam Sandler and did the exact same movie, but just let Adam Sandler improv all of his own lines, I would see that movie. It doesn't matter what
and the best part is they don't they never show Adam Sandler the script. They just tell him what the movie's about 10 minutes before he does it, and he goes, all right.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the day that we get an Adam Sandler biopic.
Oh, I know.
Because it's gonna happen, and I'm just biding my time.
Yeah, but Adam Sandler could Adam Sandler any movie. Can you imagine Adam Sandler replacing Sandra Bullock in Gravity and the hilarity that would ensue?
And he would fart in space. Yes.
I think he needs to replace George Clooney so he can just be Adam Sandler as he floats off into space.
Oh no! They're all gonna laugh at you.
Can we end this? Nightmare, Todd?
I'm
Can we
so
wake up
sorry.
from this dark dream?
Okay, I've got so much to think about that I don't want to think about. So I need some closing statements before I make any decisions, but please make them quick because I feel the darkness creeping in.
All right, so I'm gonna leave you with the last kind of like the parting words of Paste Pot Pete in this super gritty movie. Right before they're in the final battle, and Spider-Man's gonna cast the finishing blow, and Paste Pot Pete looks at him and says, "All around the world, statues crumble for me. Who knows how
I hate
long
you
I've loved
so
you?
much.
Everywhere I go, people stop and they see 25 years old. My mother, God rest her soul. I just want to fly."
I hate you so much.
All around the world.
I'm so mad. I'm so mad right now.
Around the world.
Wait, if you're gonna do that part, you have to get like 10 feet away from the microphone and yell into it, so it really gets.
All around the world. All around the world. Have fun editing that, guys.
This is all getting cut.
I really expected a glue pun, and I was not expecting to get hit with Sugar Ray, but I'm glad that I did.
It was a quick left turn, but I'm glad I made it.
It took him down an interesting road.
Please go more.
What are we even talking about anymore?
I just need to know why your gritty villain is the best gritty villain, and don't say Mark McGrath or don't bring up Adam Sandler.
So I'll give a real
that I
answer
brought
to
us
this
both.
question because he's the CEO of his own business. He's a master of disguise and deception, and is probably the only real answer to this whole podcast, this episode.
I think Kyla should win.
Can you even call it winning at this point?
Matt, can you please talk?
Creepy science teacher, excuse to put Michael Emerson in the MCU and steal another character actor from the DC universe. That's all I got.
Boom jams.
So before I tell you what decision I've made, because I made it a long time ago, I have to do what could quite possibly be the most painful part of this, and that is I'm going to ask you to say nice things about the other people. And you know, if you don't feel good saying nice things about Paste Pot Pete, you can just either tell me your favorite Sugar Ray song, or you can give me an Adam Sandler quote, but I need you to give me some good vibes about the other two.
Yeah, I mean, I'll accept the pass on Paste Pot Pete. Kyle's gonna win because that was the right answer. I love that when you were going through that, I was trying to hold back. I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's really fucking cool. Like, I like the idea of the like, God damn it, I just looked at Mark McGrath again. I really like the, like, are you Peter Parker? No, I'm Peter Parker. And like him like tricking his friends and family. That is very cool and very much a, like, how do you fuck with Spider-Man? You fuck with his family. Very well done.
Yeah.
The God damn it, Mark McGrath. The Mr. Warren science professor thing is really interesting. I think that's definitely going to be a natural extension of the Spider-Man lore. Is like, I want to see more of him, like his personal life interacting with his superhero life. That's a very cool iteration. Super creepy and super weird, and I don't know that they would ever do that to that extent, but always killing off Gwen Stacy is a plus. You got to kill off Gwen Stacy. You got to check that box. So yeah, very interesting stuff, guys.
So I actually, like, before we devolved into the insanity that we did, I really liked your backstory for Paste Pot Pete.
Thanks,
and
bud.
I really like the idea of having a someone running around, with a similar but different power with the glue gun and like framing Spider-Man for these crimes. And that's a really cool take on this character that has absolutely no history at all. And like you really built up this nice character and then dashed it to hell with our insanity, or with our Mark McGrath picture. But it was until we got there, it was a really cool idea. And Matt, yeah, I like the villains of Spider-Man that he has to like interact with on a day-to-day basis and like do that whole Three's Company routine with of like, here I am, I'm Peter Parker, but Spider-Man's got to be here too. Like, how do I do that? And I think a science teacher is a good way to do that. And the Gwen Stacy angle might be a little too sexual and dark to make it to the big screen, but I appreciate the attempt, and it is a very creepy backstory for a villain. Like, it definitely does work for a villain.
It definitely plays in the Netflix shows. Like that is Netflix show fodder.
Yeah. I mean it's up there with the oh gosh, we already talked about him in episode 2, but the guy from Jessica Jones who's super creepy.
Yep. The Purple Man.
Kilgrave, that's his name. Yeah. So my favorite Sugar Ray song is Into Yesterday from the Surf's Up soundtrack.
That's a good answer. Also, my favorite Adam Sandler quote is "Hoobity doobity."
Also, I learned today that according to Wikipedia, Sugar Ray is a nu metal band, which would put them in the same category as Korn. And I just need to put that down.
Their first album is a like full-fledged nu metal album, and then their second album they went to that they Sugar
put on
Ray
board
sound
shorts.
we all know.
I call that Venice Beach rock.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, like, the silly 60s are a very real time, and anytime we get to revisit a villain from the silly 60s, I laugh. Kyle said, I think that your backstory was really good, and your fight scene was epic, and the cliche of sticking somebody to a conveyor belt unintentionally and watching them be pulverized by machinery is pretty great.
Thanks,
Kyle. Thanks for showing up today. Somebody had to, and I'm glad it was you. Lord knows I woke up this morning and Googled shitty Spider-Man villains and picked the one that looked like Green Goblin and Blanca, and didn't know anything about him. And then as I started researching him, I was like, ooh, the Gwen Stacy thing is kind of weird, but I guess I'm leaning into it now. So yeah, like I said, man.
Too late to back out at this point.
Thanks for showing up.
Matt is definitely a shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy.
Damn straight, man. You're right, I am.
Well, I'm glad that we're all here now.
Can I offer a metaphor, Todd?
No.
It's very serious. This isn't a joke.
I feel like it's going to be a joke.
It's not going to be.
It's a Sugar Ray quote.
It's either Sugar Ray lyrics or an Adam Sandler bit.
Nope, it's neither. All right. So Todd is going to
I hate it already.
Todd is going to build a Debate This macaroni sculpture by taking the Debate This glue gun and gluing Debate This macaroni to a Debate This picture frame.
All right, so
what was that metaphor even?
I'll just go through the list real quick. Andrew, you lost today, and I've got a lot of reasons why. Sure I want to put it this way. I'm rubber and you're glue, and I hate all of your answers. So no, I thought it was pretty good. Your backstory was great. I personally, there's no redemption for Paste Pot Pete.
No, there's
not.
I don't.
I love like the thought, like this is what I wanted with like a gritty reboot, but man, I don't even think that the MCU facelift could save him.
Yeah, he would be. Well, you're talking about like who's the kind of villain that gets toasted in the first 10 minutes as the eye catch.
Oh,
yeah. He's like, nah, I'm Paste Pot Pete. Dead.
Spider-Man doesn't kill people, but he accidentally kills.
Yeah, no, he gets smacked by like a road sign or something, and he gets iced like Boba Fett, like a real lame-o.
Well, like Paste Pot Pete tries to like, you know, for a distraction, roll his car off a cliff, but glues his hand to the steering wheel. And that's the end of it.
When I was thinking through my screenplay, which is 4 pages, I was trying to think of a situation like that where it's like, oh, I accidentally glued my brake pedal down. Oh no!
Yeah. And that's just the end.
Like, what the fuck?
So that leaves Kyle and Matt. Kyle, yeah, you won today, and that's really great. Matt, you did a really good job.
Thanks.
Yeah,
it feels like a very hollow victory.
No, I really, really liked both of the ways that you two placed yourselves into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really agree with what Andrew said about the Jackal, like that. that duality of you are Peter Parker's teacher, but you're also the bad guy. And so you are front row center to, well, Parker's not here, but Spider-Man is, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Kyle, I can actually see yours kind of playing out, and I thought that was cool. I hope that they do the Chameleon. I hope that they play it off, and I liked your story. We should pitch that. So
I'll call my people at Marvel.
Yeah, somebody
there-
email Kevin Feige.
Yeah, there you go. So we want to thank you for listening to Debate This. Go ahead and follow along with the argument on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Debate This Cast. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review so more people can hear our stupid bullshit.
We're so glad you made it this far into the episode. If you did,
and you know what? Please don't at Adam Sandler for what we've done here today.
Or do.
He's really trying with
Seems
his
like a good guy.
with his straight to Netflix
Todd,
movies.
if we could get Adam Sandler on this show, that would be incredible.
Yeah, get
Sponsored by Debate This. Sponsored by Hibbity Doo. So until next time, I'm Todd Thomas.
I'm Andrew. They're all gonna laugh at you, Henderson.
I'm Kyle Hibbity Doo Harper.
And I'm Matt. All around the world. Cole.
Yeah.
Saying thanks for debating with us. And if you think we're wrong, then you can come fight us behind the swing sets, nerds.
Hey, you
Excelsior!
said it right.
Hey, I was gonna say. Oh, well, there's.
Excelsior.
And I didn't say swing sex.